Hi, my name is Laura, and I'm making this video for my dad, who is a brilliant retired electrical engineer. He has a very deep knowledge base when it comes to units of measurement. So let's dive in. The question is, should America go from pseudo-imperial measurements to pseudometric measurements? Since both of these systems are misleading, the answer has to be no. Pseudometric is created by the metrification of pseudo-imperial. The question is often asked, why hasn't America gone metric? One reason that nobody mentions is that America's previous attempts to go metric have resulted in going pseudometric instead of to the International System of Units, from French System International d'Unit, or SI metric. Kilograms being used as a force instead of mass, for example, makes it pseudometric. The SI metric system will always be more effective because it is a complete system which can measure everything. The imperial and US customary systems are only partial systems which can only measure some things. The pseudo systems are only good at measuring even fewer things. Note that much of the SI metric system is already used by Americans, especially the electric, magnetic, and power portions. To succeed in getting the American public to use more of the SI metric system, they first need to learn the real imperial system and then use only metric conversion tables made by people who truly understand both systems. These people have studied physics and numerical analysis like my dad has. Here is a sample of a typical metric conversion table from the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or the NIST, which is under the U.S. Department of Commerce, circulated the last time America tried to go metric. Note the error equating mass and weight. Americans need to learn to distinguish between pounds mass and pounds force. Mass measures the amount of matter. Force measures the size of a push or pull. Most pseudometric results from the false assumption that pounds always refers to mass and therefore always translates to kilograms. Only pounds mass translates to kilograms, which are always mass. Weight is the gravitational force of attraction between the object being weighed and the nearest heavenly body, like Earth. Pounds force translates to newtons, which are always force. With the federal government putting out tables like this, it is logical that the attempt to go to SI metric would result in going to pseudometric instead. Here is the physics equation for how to calculate weight from mass. You simply have to multiply the mass by the local gravitational acceleration. This equation shows that mass and weight are simply related, but not the same thing. Here is a photograph of the scales of a torque wrench. Note that it has three scales. The bottom scale is in foot-pounds of force, which is a good imperial measurement. The middle scale is in inch-pounds of force, which is another useful imperial measurement. The top scale is in meter-kilograms, which is pseudometric because kilograms is mass, not force. Torque is a force times its lever arm length. The correct SI metric scale in Newton meters has been omitted. My dad has found this same pseudometric version of torque in US military specifications. Here is a photograph of a pressure gauge. Note that it also has three scales. The red outermost scale is in pounds of force per square inch, or PSI, which is a good imperial measurement. The inner black scale is in kilograms per square centimeter, which is pseudometric because it uses kilograms mass in place of Newton's force. The inner blue scale is in kilopascals, which is a good SI metric measurement, a pascal in a Newton of force per square meter. There are complaints about switching to SI metric from people who say they aren't accustomed to it. Another complaint is that it will cost too much. If it costs too much, don't change now. Wait until changing to SI metric becomes economical. However, in the many cases where it costs little, adding SI metric equivalents side by side with the corrected customary US measurements to get Americans accustomed to real imperial measurements and real SI metric measurements would be beneficial. For starters, the pound has to go. It must be replaced with pounds mass and pounds force. We must also clean up our language, especially at the doctor's office. Don't tell the patient to hop on the scale so you can measure their weight. Tell them to hop on the scale so you can measure their mass. That's what the doctor really wants, their mass in kilograms. always give the units with the measurements in US customary and SI metric. Vehicles need to have two odometers, one being in miles and the other in meters. Yes, meters, not kilometers. At the present, when you are navigating by GPS, it guides you in miles until you get close, and then it switches to feet. It would be better to be able to select SI metric and have it guide you all the way with meters, especially with an odometer in meters. Then road signs in miles and kilometers would be more useful. To save money, leave the old signs and only put miles and kilometers on the new signs. Do the same thing for speed limit signs. Put miles per hour and kilometers per hour only on the new signs. Utility companies can also help at very low cost. On their bills, they can charge you for the kilowatt hours or British thermal units used, and also print next to it the number of joules of energy used. Stores should also help by labeling the things they sell by cost per pound's mass and also by cost per kilogram. Americans should spend a little time studying SI metric. It's a pretty short read. Americans also need to learn their unit prefixes. They need to be careful about capitalization when they print or read SI metric measurements. Contents of pills are generally in milligrams with a little m and a little g, but sometimes these measurements are labeled as megagrams with a capital M and a little g. There isn't that much mass in the whole bottle of pills, including the bottle. My dad says he's also seen capacitance as a capital M and a little f, which means megafarad instead of the intended microfarad. It would be awesome if they really manufactured capacitors as large as a megafarad. Once, a representative of a bolt and nut company was advertising how his hardware could withstand stresses of millipascals with a little m, a capital P, and a little a, instead of the actual megapascals with a capital M, a little p, and a little a. If his hardware is really as weak as he says, he can't expect to have any sales. For temperature, America should skip Celsius or centigrade degrees and go straight to Kelvin degrees, which are SI metric. That way, we would only have to change once instead of twice to SI metric. Thermometer manufacturers should have a Fahrenheit scale on one side and a Kelvin scale on the other to get us accustomed to Kelvin. Doing this could make America the first country to get all the way to SI metric. The other countries seem to be hung up on the Celsius centigrade detour. When will they switch to Kelvin? In changing, don't throw out everything that isn't metric. American screws are engineered to give maximum strength to mass ratio for steel. Their failure modes are matched so that the head pops off at about the same stress level, which strips the threads. Metric screws are designed to have nice dimensions in millimeters with no regard for matching stress levels. They always fail by stripping the threads. Their shanks and heads are relatively beefy. If the design is insensitive to mass, use metric screws so that replacement screws will be readily available all over the world. But if the design is mass sensitive, like for flying objects, American screws are the better choice. They also need to be kept as replacement screws for the many existing objects which use them. They say that you throw something against the wall to see what sticks. Pseudo-imperial and pseudometric will never stick. Imperial and US customary will also not stick since they are only partial measurement systems. Given a fair chance, SI metric will stick because it is a complete measurement system. When my dad writes a scientific computer program, he structures it in SI metric because it all fits together so well. The units follow the mathematics and multiply, divide, add, subtract, etc., so it all comes out right. If the inputs don't come in SI metric, he has the computer program convert them. If outputs other than SI metric are desired, he has the computer program convert those also. This is the path of least resistance. I recommend it for everyone. So please help eradicate pseudo-imperial and pseudometric measurements. Please promote the use of SI metric measurements alongside corrected US customary measurements. Yes, that will give us two systems operating at the same time, like Canada and other countries have or have had. Then, at some future time, the SI metric system will become comfortable to Americans. This final slide is my dad's more accurate US customary to and from SI metric conversion chart, which won't lead to pseudometric. He is a retired electrical engineer and has seen the impact and importance of correct measurement systems. He says when he looks up an equation on the internet, he usually has to print out at least 4 different versions to help him derive the SI metric version of the equation, which uses SI metric units and contains no conversion factors. Thank you so much for watching.